Hello. Thank you for having me on here. This was really a nice way to look back on my journey of the last 2 years. I just started working for Post Media, which is it's a large Canadian media organization. There's a ton of newspapers that fall under Post Media as well as digital services. I'm working with the web services as a UX researcher. And yeah, I also have been doing a lot of facilitation. I've been facilitating with a group called Design Your Impact, Design for Impact, and I've been facilitating Design Your Life, coaching projects, all of which I'll talk about. Um, yeah, yeah, let's get started. So I want to first start with a territorial acknowledgement. I am presenting and working from the traditional and unceded territories of the Lekwungen people, also known as Victoria, BC, Canada. I think it's very important to pay attention and listen to the people on the land that you are from. There's a lot to learn and a lot of work to be done in decolonization. I very early on in my design career made a commitment to always design in a way that's inclusive of all people and specifically supportive of decolonization. So yeah, I'm going to go through some of my background. I was doing social work, youth work for 12 years in various capacities. I worked with youth with disabilities in group homes in Toronto. I did harm reduction work. I worked with homelessness and addictions work in the inner city. And then I built up to managing youth wellness programming. And I was working with a First Nations community Sayout here on Vancouver Island for a couple of years. If I can break it down quickly to what I learned with that is user-centered design, and that's before I ever really understood what design was. But doing youth work is very user-centered design. Specifically working in First Nations communities as a non-Indigenous person. That was a very early teaching in, everything had to be from the community and for the community. I had to always be able to back up any decisions I made with, well, this is what the elders wanted, or this is what the youth wanted, or the family, or chief and council. So a very early, strong understanding of user-centered design. Empathy, it was a constant practice in listening and paying attention and learning, as well as systems design and bias to action. It's been a wild change from youth work where it's just like, yeah, let's try a thing, prototypes all over the place. You guys want to go on a trip here? We're going on a trip. To now doing more methodical design. Yeah, it's a big change, but definitely the bias to action is an exciting part about youth work. You can prototype and try things out all over the place. I was also an international program leader. I worked with a group based out of a nonprofit based out of Toronto, actually, called Operation Groundswell. I can only highly recommend Operation Groundswell. They do facilitated service learning trips, and they're in I think 11 regions in the world, and I've led a number of trips with them in Colombia, Guatemala, Peru, and Cambodia. Yeah, they really do a good job of. It's not just like party vacation trips. All of the trips have a focus to it, and then there's also a lot of facilitation around like checking your privilege and understanding what it means to be traveling in these regions and what it is to volunteer or yeah, just a lot of discussions and and work around ethical travel. I absorbed a lot of design through this program. They actually have really good designers that were working building this program, and I didn't know what design was, but I saw them doing it, and I felt how it affected everything, and made the programs really solid. Um, Team problem solving, definitely traveling around with a group of 12 people in another country is on the spot. High stakes problem solving sometimes. Usually it's all good, but sometimes there's some like, oh, we just landed and somebody found a rusty needle that had stuck through their foot. Dealing with that. Learned a lot about facilitation, group facilitation, discussion, ideation, on the spot planning, and yeah, design thinking, as I said. Um, Also, a couple of mentions. I have a degree in professional communications from Railroads University, which is here. It is a good paper to have, and it's a good thing that I can I can talk about it um, in my interviews. But honestly, I've done most of my learning in design outside of the degree. Uh, I did do a web design boot camp in 2008. That was kind of before I found youth work. I had learned lots of things. It wasn't even called a boot camp. It was before boot camps were called boot camps. But yeah, I was learning how to code websites directly with HTML back in the day. I had learned how to do all these fun things, and I got one client, and the client wanted very specific things, and I wasn't allowed to play with all the tools I learned. And then I found youth work, and so really put it down for a while. But that gave me a solid background. The one thing that it didn't give me, and I didn't have the words to express it at the time, was the why. It taught a lot of how tools, but it had none of the user-centered design, or it had none of the why. And so I can look back now and see that I was constantly hitting questions like, what color should this button be? What's this? And I was just constantly making it up or Googling these things, whereas now I understand that it's a huge gift to have the like, oh, just ask users what they need instead of making it up, which was what it felt like I was doing. And I also want to mention that, yeah, I have a strong arts background. I've been in bands, I've done visual art, dancing is huge, and so I draw upon that for everything I do in a lot of ways. Yeah, so about 3 years ago, I was really burnt out with youth work. I was working too hard, spinning my wheels, taking a lot on. I can, now that I have, again, a design language to explain it, I would say it was bad design what I was doing. One thing that I got really excited about when I was first starting with design was the ability to clarify. It would have been really, I did a lot of things that were design, and I did my best, and I ran some good programs, but it would have been really nice to have gone through the entire design process with say running programmings and understanding that things are prototypes, and then really nailing down like the final step launch. I think that's one thing. I just tried everything, and basically I was stuck in prototype as opposed to really clarifying which one thing I wanted to do, which had me working all the time because I really wanted to solve problems. which I still do. So I've learned a lot through that, and I've learned a lot through design. Um, I had never heard of UX. It was about 2 years ago. I was looking for something because I'd done social work for so long. I was just looking for something else that I would get into, and my friend who was staying with me said, "Oh, I've got this webinar that I'm going to join to see if I want to join this boot camp." And I joined in and was sparked, which was just a chance happening. But I had some friends that about 2 years ago. I had some friends, a lot of them in Toronto actually, and a lot of them were designers with Operation Groundswell, the travel organization, that I called up, and I just sparked my excitement even more. My one friend said, he said, "Oh, the UX is great. It's my job to I bring toys to CEOs and make them play with toys." And I love the idea of that. I was also very inspired when I was asking him. Um, I know a lot of people who are striving and always trying to better and better. And when I asked him, what's next in UX, he's a very accomplished UX designer. And when I asked him what's next, he said, nothing, just doing it. And that clarity and that peace of mind that can come from a well-designed life was something that intrigued me and is exciting. Yeah, I went to a local UX meetup. It was on meetup.com, just curious, and I met someone who accidentally gave me two gifts. They told me to go to Interaction Design Foundation, based out of Denmark. Really, really good courses. It's all self-led, but um, if you're self-led and self-motivated, I can only suggest them. I've never taken really any other courses, so I don't know how it compares, but was able to learn a lot through there. And then the other thing, I was explaining my social work background, and this one person that I met said, "Oh, you like empathy? That's exciting. You're coming from social work. You got this empathy. That'll work well for you." And I took the hint, and now in the last couple years of learning and job hunting, I realized that it's kind of a buzzword that I can use, and especially in tying it to my social work, it's what UX designers get excited about. So I know I can use that buzzword, but deeper than that, I know that I truly love learning how to build my empathy, practicing having empathy, and it's a constant practice. I love design initially because I was talking a little bit about it, but it answered the why, as opposed to just the how, and the clarity that comes from going through the process and being able to say, this is why we're doing this. We tried all the options, we ideated, we opened everything up, and then we narrowed it down, and now there's this one thing, and I can ignore the rest of everything else. That it feels easy on my hectic brain. And I love the facilitation aspect of it. That's something that I'd been doing for years, and I just love seeing that it was a really beautiful format and sort of framework for facilitating. And of course, solving problems, classic. I'm constantly trying to solve problems for myself and others, and it's really the best framework for making that happen collaboratively. And I just love that it's a path through ambiguity, and both it teaches me to be okay with ambiguity when it's around, because it's maybe early stages, and then also how to break through that ambiguity. Yeah, very early on, I got a contract in Souk, BC here, and it's a very beautiful place. That's a picture of Souk. It's I actually got this. I applied for a different job that I didn't get, but then they called me up later and said, "Hey, you said some things in your interview. You're really excited about this design stuff. We have another contract for you." And so I was really lucky to land this. It kind of came from my youth work um, background, but it was user experience research. So it was a contract with the district of Souk, the local government in Souk, researching the feasibility of a youth programming that would be in a new seniors complex. So researching the feasibility of intergenerational programming, bringing teens and elderly people together, which is really exciting to me. I was so inspired actually by the youth of Souk. I really wasn't expecting to see so much enthusiasm for intergenerational program, but there was a couple of youth groups I spoke to. They're like, "Oh yeah, we're already going to homes, and we'd be really excited. We have all these ideas," and just we surveyed in schools, and the feedback that came back, like care for the environment and care for the community and stuff that I was not thinking about when I was in high school. Just really, yeah, I was really impressed, thoughtful, and that was my first in sort of on the ground user research, and I loved it. I loved just chatting with people, getting the ideas. It's a really nice, again, format for me to learn and move in the world, and I would genuinely get very like into it and excited and passionate about doing the research. So that was my first hint that I'd be into that. I also started doing web design. I made or designed 2 websites with my sister, who's at Pregnancy and Postpartum TV. Her YouTube channel blew up over COVID because she was offering exercise and nutrition videos for new mothers, and so new mothers were all at home needing to exercise with their children, and so that worked out, and I designed a website with my partner, Taria. She is a coach, and it's actually, coaching is something that I'm also fairly new to, and she's not specifically a design coach or a business coach, but just some of the methodologies in the coaching practice, if anyone has the opportunity to get a design coach or a business coach, super valuable. Yeah, I did my Interaction Design Foundation courses. Since they're self-paced, I did them very slowly and sort of used these real-life web projects as practice, and luckily there was no deadline for either of these, and so I took my time to do an entire research process, and then moving through the design process, and I was able to do all the steps really fully and completely, which worked out not only for my portfolio, but just learning how things can go, and both my partner and my sister were very patient in taking, I don't know, 6 months to do a web development project that could have been, the end result could have been done in a very short time with WordPress, but it was really designed fully with the user research and all the learnings on the way. So yeah, one thing I loved when I started with design was the community aspect, and it was a big shift as well, not only to design but to remote. I really started designing during COVID, so I've been mostly remote, and I was just so impressed and shocked with the level of care and help that there is in communities online, and specifically I was just really blown away when I started with the Collective Studio. I have no idea how I found it, but that was my first sprint that I did with the Collective Studio, and the inclusivity and sharing and just excitement for design and learning, I was so impressed with, and it made me want to keep with this as a really good group of people out in the world doing design. Um, and I also started with another group called Design for Impact. I guess Abram is based in Australia, but it's global. And uh, really, I coming from social work, I really wanted to do projects that had impact, and it's all sorts of people join, but it has a nice aspect of collecting a lot of people who are new to design, but also a lot of very experienced designers who are often working a little more corporate who want to have that impact. And so very experienced designers, a lot of skills, a lot of good thinking, and then bringing that together with people who are just starting getting into design and also want to have impact. And so really beautiful community. We started um, maybe about 3 months ago. I had been trying to convince Abram to do real world projects. We'd been doing courses on some, like design research was a course, and it got to the point where people were calling Afghanistan. We did a food security project in Afghanistan, and people were calling and doing interviews and learning how to do research and getting some good stuff, and then we didn't do anything with it, and that drove me crazy. So I collaborated with Abram to run a design sprint, and we found a nonprofit in Ghana, Africa ICT Right. They do a lot of they get youth involved in tech, and they also have a really impressive women in tech programs. They build like computer labs in sea cans, and also work a lot with schools to improve technical literacy in Ghana. So yeah, I facilitated a sprint with um, the Design for Impact. That was a incredibly fun project. Again, we put out the call for volunteers, and we had so many applications we actually couldn't even take everybody, and then the crew that we did get was so talented and so smart and so on it and a lot of fun, and it reminded me a lot of when I was doing international travel uh, learning programs, but just totally remote, and it just opened my eyes to what can be done collectively, globally, and yeah, with design. Um, oh yeah, another thing that I found early on in my transition to design was a book called Designing Your Life. It's two Stanford D School professors who run a course called Designing Your Life at Stanford. Uh, Game changer for me. The first time I did it's just really applying design principles and going through the design process to solve problems in life for non-designers or non and designers as well. And this is one of the things that I get excited about design for in general is the fact that it's so applicable to all problems. So yeah, I did this as a sort of a book club with some friends for the first round, and one of the my take homes from that was I love this, I want to do more of it, and so I actually built a online program and started facilitating that, and it is so much fun, and it's a nice way to look at life and problems, and again, it just builds that clarity. I tend to do too much and get scattered and spin my wheels, and it's just a nice way to it starts out with the research process, and since it's designing your life, it's self-research and understanding where you're coming from, and then moves through the steps. And so if anybody ever gets the chance to read Designing Your Life and do it as like a book club with friends, highly suggest it. Great way to solve problems. Something else I fell into and dove deep into the rabbit hole is improv for facilitation. A lot of people know comedy improv, but it gets really deep, and I love it for, it can be used for team building, but also it's the idea that the things that make a good improv scene, such as the classic rule of yes and, they make a good design, and they make a good life. And there's a lot of ways to use it for ideation, opening people up to being creative and thinking of all the things in different ways, but also working with blocks and sort of when there's blocks in a project. And yeah, there's just lots of ways to take the things learned from improv and apply it to facilitation and business, and it's a very exciting field, and I get into it. And also empathy. That's another thing. There's a lot with, in order to do a good improv scene, it's really about listening and paying attention moment to moment to what's happening, and acting on that. And so there's a ton of depth in that. And all right, so yes, job hunting. About 6 months ago, I've been sort of doing all these projects for a year and a half. I decided it was time to head out there digitally and hit the digital pavement. And it was a pretty excruciating process. I had to build my portfolio, which was actually a lot of fun. I'd never really done that. It's a very different thing from getting social work jobs, which is entirely based on personality. And I started building my portfolio. Actually, it was Melanie. I was asking early on Melanie about how to build, like where to build a portfolio and where to host it, and Melanie's response was like, "Oh, I've got some old projects on Behance. I need to update it." And I thought, that sounds professional, actually. Like, not needing it so much or making this big deal of a fancy portfolio. Just I throw my things on Behance because I'm too busy doing projects to make a portfolio. So I put my portfolio on Behance. I am building a website, but there's too many other things going on. I started building my resume. A huge thing was when I decided to just use a template. I paid for a template. I try and do everything for free, but I found a nice one and actually paid for it. And I've had people in interviews say, "Oh, the design in your resume is great." And for a designer, that's important. I am not a graphic designer. I'm not a visual designer. I've learned that throughout my process, so it's great to outsource that to the millions and millions of templates that are out there. Oh, I made a decision. I know there's a lot with the like AI screening robots, and I've seen some resumes that are tailored for that, and I just found them ugly, and it's not good visual design, which is, as a designer, even though I'm not a visual designer, it's still important because the people who are hiring me are often. So I decided to not hyper tailor my resume to robo filters that may have a consequence in me not passing the robo filter, but I just like the way it looks when it's more of a classic resume style. But with that, of course, I am still tailoring keywords to the job and playing that game. Uh, and then I started doing interviews. I had to learn how to do UX interviews. I'd only done social work interviews, which are a totally different game, and it was actually a process of design. I actually had a resume and portfolio that were getting me interviews that I wasn't prepared for, and I really had some excruciating interviews where they were asking me questions that I just out of my league sort of jobs, and just sweating my way through and trying to make it up. But slowly I figured out what people were looking for, and as well throughout that process, I really honed my niche of doing UX research. I just through my ramblings, I found that I just genuinely got excited about user interviews, and it was the research part that excited me. And when it came down to actually making the wireframes, I just didn't want to do that work. So it's the human connection and the figuring out what people need that is a huge part of my interest. And also, I was able to kind of leverage my background in research interviews a lot better, because really I knew that I was kind of swimming upstream in I knew I could do this work, and I know I can design, but I don't have any really professional solid experience saying that I could do this. One of the things I got early on from Abram with Design for Impact is he always used to say, you're selling yourself short. You're a designer. You've been doing design for years. Don't stop saying you're learning, or you're just figuring it out because you're a designer. And that was a nice mindset shift that I took on. And as soon as I decided, all right, I am a designer, I'm not learning design, and it doesn't matter whether I necessarily have the job yet. I am doing design a lot, so I am a designer. And so 2 weeks ago, I started with Post Media. It's a large Canadian media, digital, and print newspaper primarily organization. Really lovely team. The benefit of me kind of making trying to make it work, I didn't I don't really have any formal design training, but I've done a lot of these projects, as you can see, and the benefit of that to me is I got a lot of rejections. I went through three times. I went through 4 interviews for a company that I was very excited about them every time, only to get rejected, and that was with tests and doing user interviews. Got very excited, and then only to get let down in the end. But what this process did do in filtering it out was the organization that hired me, I really get the sense that they want to work with me. They weren't looking for credentials. They necessarily. They were just excited about what I was bringing to the table and my enthusiasm and love for doing the work and connecting with people. I made quite hastily made a top tips, just where I'm coming from, and I think the things that helped me out on the way. Gratitude for community and mentors. I truly get so grateful to communities like this and Design for Impact. One of the things that the Design Your Life book gets into is networking and finding mentors, and I went on a sort of did my own sprint of connecting with mentors, and it's just I'm constantly blown away with how helpful people are. in sharing with their time and knowledge. So yeah, just going with that, the gratitude, and that helps me network because I'm sincerely grateful for everyone that's helped me out, and I want to continue that myself, passing that on. Enthusiasm, it's right on my like LinkedIn profile, and the first word I say I'm overly enthusiastic. I truly love design, and I want to learn, and I'm open, and just going back to that beginner's mindset is really important to me, and um, that's something that's helped me out. And bias to action, there's tons of things that I push through in this process. Just like, okay, let's try it. I mean, just the idea of prototyping um, means that it's kind of failure immunity, as they call it in Design Your Life. Just if it's a prototype can't fail because that's the whole point of it. And so, really, just pushing through, doing things, making it happen, and then figuring it out after. And then, yeah, belief in design thinking. I really get excited about design and design thinking, and it's just one of the most comprehensive tools for figuring out this crazy world we live in that I found. And oh yeah, I talked about deciding that I'm a designer. That was a mindset shift. And Design Your Life, which is a process that I've spoken about, and improv, which I spoke about. So yeah, that's me in my 2-year process. Looking back to make this, I see why I felt like I was working hard because there's a bunch going on, and the timelines don't necessarily match up. But yeah, that's me. That's my love for design.
Thank you so much, Dan. That was so cool, so informative. And yes, I love your enthusiasm and your mindset. It kind of led you to, you know, great opportunities. And I'm really happy that you are still working with Design for Impact. Because I remember the first time we did, well, we joined in on an event that they were hosting. I think that's how I got you involved. Because I think I
It
was
was.
there too. Yeah. Abraham's still keeping it up. That's cool. I'm really happy that you're
Yeah.
able to do great things with that community as well. That's really impressive. But
Yeah.
also, a good example to show others here that like you could utilize community for your own success as well. You can meet so many different people with common ideas, shared passion or enthusiasm for learning. So yeah, I'm really glad that you shared that. That was really cool. That's really cool stuff. Do we have any questions for Dan? Feel free to unmute your mic, or if you're not able to use the voice functionality, just leave a chat message on the living room chat. Or if you have any comments, words of gratitude, like thank you, you could also tell Dan that you loved his presentation. Okay, well, it seems like, oh wait, Tiffany, were you saying something?
Yeah, I just have a question. He was saying that, he was kind of fumbling his way through interviews until he figured out what exactly they were looking for. So how did you figure out what they were looking for?
Um, I mean, it was a lot of honestly trial and error. I probably started doing interviews a little bit before I was ready, but I would really just take like write notes. I would try and write down the questions that I was asked in every interview. There's some really good blogs out there. There was one that was like they collected the questions that were asked in by Google, Facebook, and something else. The questions that UX researchers were asked in interviews. It was really helpful, and yeah, just took a lot of time in thinking about my answers for that. One other thing that I learned to do, which was kind of fun, is when it came time to asking questions, I I came up, I spent a lot of time crafting like, ooh, what's the best question, and my one thing that I've always done with that is, again, like curiosity and enthusiasm, and just, I'm a UX researcher, just treat it like UX research, like, really, tell me more. um, but the one thing that I started doing was uh, asking the same questions that they asked me, which are actually really tough sometimes. I had one interview with actually, it was with Post Media, where I said, "Well, can you tell me about a situation you had with an employee that was difficult, and how did you deal with it?" And they actually responded like, "Ooh, that's a tough question." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. That's a question I get asked all the time." And then the answer that I got from it was actually really thoughtful, and I had my misgivings about working for a large organization. Moving from social work, it's not something that I'm have any experience with. And the answer from him was, he told a story about an employee that wasn't um, showing up to meetings, and he said his first response was, just check in with this employee. How are you doing? Is there something wrong? And that empathy and care really impressed me, and I didn't know if I would find that working with a larger organization, and so just to hear that that's where the team managers were coming from, was I got a great answer out of it. But yeah, I really took on doing interviews as a design process. Everything a design lens can be put to it. So just really, like, taking the questions I was asked and the things, looking what people got excited about. Like, it's all user research. This is what people want to see, and that was part of, the empathy thing, is really just making the decision that I can see that people are excited about empathy for myself. So that's my superpower, and just how can I lean into that more, and how can I use my background to kind of play that up. So just figuring out my unique skills, and how to lean into that more.
Yeah, that's actually a great answer. And also, an interesting aspect of interviewing is not only are you presenting yourself, but you also have to ask questions to the interviewer, right? Like, you're also going to find out more about not just the job and the role, but whether or not this is the kind of company that you would imagine working for. So yeah, like asking difficult questions, like how do you handle this kind of situation? Like, those are the kind of questions that I think um, interviewers don't expect, because I think most people would just go to the interview, answer all the questions, and at the end, when the interviewer says, "Hey, do you have any questions for me?" most people are just going to be like, "Nope, that's it. I'm fine with the surface level knowledge of this company. Thank you very much. Give me a check." So it's not like that. So, like, when you ask those kind of questions, it shows that you're committed not only to the job itself, but like you are making a choice to be there. So instead of just taking the job at face value, you want to know more. You want to go deeper into how it is that people work together. You're making decisions for yourself. So obviously, you don't want to work for a company where people don't care about empathy, or they don't care about the user. That wouldn't be the place where you could thrive. That's not the best place for you. So yeah, definitely ask those kind of questions on interviews, because if you're going to be working for an employer long term, it better be a place that is deserving of your skills and your talents. Think about it that way, right? So, yeah, that's pretty cool. I also have a question, and for me, I'm quite ignorant of like UX research as a job, because I only know like the visual aspect of it, in terms of like building and designing prototypes. Um, how do you showcase yourself as a UX researcher? Because obviously, having a portfolio is important if you have something visual, right? So if you come up with some of these design artifacts, you would have to be designing these visuals. But when it comes to the data part, it's like, how do you show that in your portfolio? Like, do you just show a bunch of charts and graphs of projects that you did and results in terms of numbers and KPIs being, you know, accomplished? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah, excellent question. That was something that it was kind of hard to figure out, and there is some help. I actually took a portfolio course through Interaction Design Foundation, and thinking back, I actually wish that I hadn't. It just it's just how they look at it, and um, yeah, there's so much information about how to do portfolios, and there's a little bit on how to do research portfolios, but it is very different, and certainly the visual aspect is missing, but it's all about it's storytelling, and yeah, it's really about trying to come up with an engaging story and really getting deep into the why. And I actually find that learning how to do the process makes a stronger portfolio piece anyway. It's like an added challenge. If I were to make a design portfolio, I think it would be stronger because it really forces you. You can't rely on the visuals or the like, oh, this is how it looks. You really have to dig into the why you made decisions and how you made decisions, and but it's still a story that you can go through and start out with why you did it, and the beginnings and all the steps along the way. And I really love actually the Design Your Life book they just have little excerpt blurbs that say challenge, and then they'd say getting you need experience to get experience. You need experience to get experience conundrum, and then reframe. I'm making this up, but you can design that whatever. And so I stole that format. I really like that. I just had little blurbs like this was the challenge, and then this was the reframe. But yeah, there's lots of challenges and things to explain, and really just turning the data into a story, which is ultimately what user research is in the end anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just doing user research.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's like, okay, I can understand the storytelling aspect of it, because it's like, as humans, we understand the concept of a story where there's a problem and there's a resolution at the end. So we need an introduction to that problem. We need to understand the context of it. We need to know what is contributing to this problem. We need the facts. And then also the why aspect, which is sort of like what you get from listening to people about their problems and how they go through these things. All this stuff makes sense to us. So we can't just show the data and just be like, here's some facts and some tables and some pie charts. Like, no, there's actually a story, and it has an end. Or at least it has some kind of resolution that I guess you can create through your data. But yeah, I like that approach. And same thing with
Yeah.
the improv stuff. Like, I've met other senior designers that also use the and yes, but kind of trigger, as to say, like, let's go along with things. Like, let's improvise and then also, add to a particular story, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty cool. This is also very interesting that you have the books that kind of like helped you change your mindset. I wasn't really aware of that book before. What was it called? Design Your Life? And I wasn't sure. I thought I saw it on one of your slides, but was there a price tag of that book? Was it like $49 or was it $499? I couldn't tell. Yeah.
Oh, this was my sorry. So the book
Yeah.
itself is I don't know, 30, like it's an average book.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the course that I facilitated. So I got very excited about it and started facilitating courses.
Oh.
I would be very slick if I was like, you can check out my website, but I am currently overwhelmed with other projects and am not running these anymore. So that was my like fully facilitated 12-week course, and I brought everything into that. Like I bring improv into it and make it like a collective group that meets every week for 12 weeks, and I bring everything from that I know from design and research into it and facilitate it as a
Wow.
group. And um, it's really important. They suggest in the book, and it's probably the most important part is that it is done with a group. But they explain how to build a group and how to do that. But I just wanted to practice like facilitation and bringing this to people in a very in-depth way.
Wow, that's
And
pretty cool. That's awesome. I would love for you to come back and to host a design sprint with us and design for impact. Maybe one day we could collab. But that would be
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I
if you
didn't
have
yeah.
specific ideas and definitely design for impact is going to be hosting another um, like 8 to 12 week sprint starting sometime probably about in a month. We learned a ton of lessons from doing our first one. We really just kind of biased to action, like let's see what it's like to run a sprint, and we learned a lot, and what we're going to do is take people who participated in the first sprint and like make everyone collaborators and facilitators. And so it's going to be a group of us. I'm so impressed with the team and the work that was done. I was
Mm.
constantly just like, I don't know how to express how amazing you all are. They're just such dedication and working so hard for this project, and really, really cool deliverables. Um, but yeah, so Design for Impact is doing another sprint, likely starting in a month. We
Mhm.
haven't set a date yet, but I will let you know when that's happening.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Hopefully I'll have some time to join you guys. But
Hmm.
yeah, thanks for the invite. Um,
Hmm.
do we have any more questions for Dan? Or maybe any comments you have for Dan? If not, then I guess we can wrap up this event. Because I think it's 4 p.m. now, at least 4 p.m. here in Toronto. But yeah, thank you so much, Dan, for sharing your story. Um, and thank you guys for being here, listening, and being a respectful audience. Um, you could always talk to Dan. He's here on Discord. You could just DM him at Sinfu, you know. Also,
Dancing foo.
yeah. And yeah, next weekend we are going to hear stories from Ben Ellsworth and Claire as well. She's our co-founder. She's
Oh,
also going to do a
nice.
talk about how she got her first UX job at American Express. Um,
Oh, I want to hear that.
yeah, exactly. She'll be here next Sunday. So yeah, come back around this time, and she'll share her story. If you want to register for any of these events, you know where to find it. You scroll up to the top, check out our events, and you just click interested so that you get a reminder. For those of you that are interested in our design sprints, that is happening. I'm going to post another announcement so that you could reserve your tickets. So, yeah, just keep your eyes peeled in announcements and you'll get a link to buy early bird tickets, which is a very, very special discounted price for all of you. Other than that, that's all I got to say. Thank you so much for coming and have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy your day.
Thank you so much.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye.